The other theme this week is the idea of Wallace's line. Now, it derived from an idea that was put forward that there was these zoogeographical realms, so regions of the world that, based on the distribution of the animal species in those areas, were defined areas. So Sclater in 1858 defined 6 zoogeographical regions across the world. And one of the problems he had was defining the line between what he called the Indian realm, which we would call the Oriental now, and the Australian or Australasian realm. Now, Wallace had travelled already in the Malay archipelago, and he had very clear ideas about where this line might be. And he wrote a paper in response to Sclater to say, for him, the line would run between Bali and Lombok and between Borneo and Sulawesi, because the animal productions, as he called them, on either side of this line were quite different. And this is where we get this idea of Wallace's line. So there was a little bit of contention about where the line might be. So we had Wallace's line, and then we also had Lydekk's line, and we had Weber's line. And partly these are because different groups of organisms, so if you're looking at plants or if you're looking at animals or particular types of animals, would give you a different interpretation on where the line might be. So what we now consider this region of Wallacea is really between Wallace's line and Weber's line. And what that roughly coincides with is the area that would have been ocean or islands, so away from the continental shelves. But what's interesting, and I guess what the perspective that we've come to really in recent years, is that maybe there isn't really a line or a series of lines as such, but really what you have is a gradient of species. So certain types of species, say for example mammals, oriental mammals, have come down through Sumatra and Java to Bali, and then they've made their way down some of the islands of Nusa Tenggara. Birds, for example, some birds are able to move quite well, and they've moved across the islands and made it further. So really what you're looking at is a whole zone where you have an intergradation of Australian forms and New Guinea forms with the Oriental forms coming from the west. So in week 3 we will look at the Malay archipelago and the general region of Wallacea. The first part is looking at the geography. So there's a constellation of islands and a real confusion of names. There's so many individual different islands in the area. So to get ourselves familiar with the general region. And then we will look at the geology, and it's quite a complex geological history, the evolution of this area, the archipelago and the various islands, Australia pushing up into Southeast Asia. And then we will look at distributions of particular species and groups of species, so families, including examples from birds, mammals and plants. Some that have been derived from Australia, that are Gondwanan, and some that have been derived from Asia. And also some which have then speciated within the context of these islands.